I feel like bone marrow transplant, probably not. Gene therapy, definitely yes. So it comes down really to the risks of the procedure versus the benefits. Obviously, there's lots of risks involved from the chemotherapy that you'd have to receive in both procedures because the bone marrow needs to be wiped out and all the stem cells that you have cleared so that either you can have donor stem cells inserted, as in a bone marrow transplant, or your own stem cells inserted that have been edited by gene therapy. So the chemotherapy obviously wipes out your immune system so that you've got no defense against infections. So you're at high risk for developing complications. And I think it would just be like pretty rough to go through. So that in itself, you'd have to be having a pretty bad time in life to want to go through that. With the bone marrow transplant, there's the additional risk of rejection because your body's immune system can reject the donated bone marrow, the donated stem cells, and that's more likely to happen in adults. So I probably wouldn't go because I'm 35. So if it had been an option when I was younger, I might have gone for it. But then again, when I was younger, I didn't really have that many issues with sickle cell, so it probably wouldn't have been worth going through that anyway. And then you've got something called graft versus host disease. So that's when the donated bone marrow starts to attack your body, and that would then need to be treated with you taking immunosuppressants for life. So that's then another medication that you have to take for life. And I wouldn't really be keen to do that. So bone marrow transplant, not really thinking about that unless you're like very young and have severe disease. That's probably when you want to be thinking about bone marrow transplant. Gene therapy is obviously new, but it's showing a lot of promise and it doesn't have the same risk of rejection and graft versus host disease. So if I had enough money, I would definitely do that. It would be, a case of going through a period of isolation where you are infection risk, and I think I'd be willing to do that. It's a one-off treatment. The other thing is that as long as you're already quite fit and healthy, you're less likely to have complications associated with the chemotherapy. So that's something that I've thought about as well. I think it would make a huge difference, just feeling less restricted in life and not having to worry about the same triggers. And yeah, like sometimes I do think about what it would be like to not have sickle cell and to be able to just, be completely free and do all these, intense sports and activities, and it would make a difference. For now, I'm pretty happy, with where I'm at. I feel like so far I've had a good life. I've learned some hard lessons, but everyone has. And I feel like having sickle cell has made me into the person I am today. So it's not something that I'm like desperate to get rid of, because I've kind of already learned how to live with it. So I'm kind of at peace with that, with where I am. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. I'd love to know what you guys think as well. I've heard from quite a lot of people that are really keen to have any kind of curative treatment. I'm curious about other people that are sort of like torn on the decision because, there are risks involved, and I think it'd be good to chat about that. So yeah, let me know where you're at in the comments.